everybody, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us this evening for our event, Working Through Menopause. My name is Abby, and I'm the Events and Partnership Manager at Drop Bio, and I'm really excited to be hosting this event today. Before I introduce today's guests, I'd like to firstly acknowledge and pay respects to the past, present, and future traditional custodians and elders of the nations on which we each stand today. For anyone here who is new to Drop Bio Health, we've been around for a few years now, and our mission is to help you own your health. We do this through our free events with health experts and products such as our at-home finger prick blood test called Wellbeing, which helps you detect and revert health trends over time to improve your quality of life. To join the waitlist ahead of our next release, check out the link in the chat box. Dr. Ginny Mansberg is a longtime friend of Drop, the author of the best-selling book, The M Word, How to Thrive in Menopause, as well as a GP TV presenter and member of both the Australian and international menopause societies. Shelley Horton is a journalist, TV presenter, and expert communicator in the workplace. She runs her own training company, Shell Shocked Media, which delivers tailored solutions to organizations. Together, Ginny and Shelley are longtime friends, colleagues, and now co-founders of the fantastic Don't Sweat It online training program, which is centered on peri and menopause in the workplace. Between them, they have a wealth of both professional and personal experience navigating menopause and peri, and we're so fortunate to have their time and wisdom today. So welcome back to Drop, guys.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, hooray, hooray.
Always wonderful to have you. Can't wait to dive into it tonight. For our audience, please feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself and join the conversation. And if you have any questions for our guests, please put them in the Q&A box below to be answered. We will be doing a Q&A a little bit later in tonight's event, so make sure you get them in there. Please remember also that any advice given during this event is general, and for any personal queries, make sure you see your GP. Without further ado, I want to dive into the topic of menopause and how we can better support ourselves and those around us in work and life. So I'm going to hand over to you, Ginny and Shelley.
Thank you so much. We love Drop Bio, and we are so glad that we can be spreading the word about perimenopause and menopause. Dr. Ginny, this is your passion, and it is your area of expertise. But for me, it kind of hit me sideways. So why don't I start by, first of all, acknowledging that when we talk about peri and menopause, we use the word women, but of course we are including anyone from the trans community, non-binary, anyone who identifies as a woman. This is all about your ovaries. And so we are trying to be kind and inclusive to everyone and understand that we're here to support each other. So let me tell you a little story. So yes, I'm Shelley Horton. You can check me on Channel 9. Pretty confident, have a good time with my life, except it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Ginny, when did your book come out?
Around February 2020.
Okay.
So, no, 2019, sorry.
2019.
I lost a year there. 2019, yeah.
So 2019, Ginny brings out the M Word. And because we are such good friends, you know, we've even traveled overseas together with our husbands. That, you know, is the proof of friendship. She asked me to do a, post. No, she didn't ask me. I offered to do a post with her photo to push it out to my followers. I'm like, of course. Did the post and then put the book on my shelf because I'm like, well, menopause, that doesn't affect me. That's for gray-haired old ladies clutching their pearls and having hot sweats. And I'm only 45 then. Well, more fool me, because the next year when I was 46, perimenopause hit me right between the ovaries, basically. And here's the thing, because I hadn't read Ginny's book, I'd never even heard the word perimenopause. So I didn't know what was happening. Of course, this coincided with COVID and lockdowns. And so every symptom that I had, I just wrote it off as stress because of COVID. So I was feeling quite anxious and getting mental health issues. And so I'm like, that was COVID stress. I was having hot flushes, and I'm like, well, put on some COVID kilos. It's probably that. I was really struggling to get my work ethic back. And I'm just like, it's COVID. Turns out it wasn't COVID. In fact, it took me nearly 9 months to go and see a GP about this. Now, because this is, in a safe space, I'm very comfortable telling you all that I have an IUD, so I hadn't had a period in 12 years. So 9 months into having this very overwhelming feeling, really struggling to the point where I was crying at least once a day over nothing. Like I couldn't, there was no reason for me to be crying. It was just big fat tears dropping down my face. And then all of a sudden I got a period, and it was a period that lasted 60 days. Now that is when I went to the GP, and that is when I went and got tested, made sure it wasn't any nasties, and I was told I was in perimenopause. So of course, in tears, I rang Dr. Ginny because we're best friends. I cannot have Ginny as my GP because I have a rule that you can't have wine with a friend if she's done your pap test. I think that's a fair rule. I think that's a rule to live by. Anyway, unfortunately, the GP that I had seen didn't give me the advice that I needed, and I still was spiraling quite poorly. My dear husband, Darren, who is a saint, he was really worried about my mental health. I have never had mental health issues before. And so this is now, I know in perimenopause, 1 in 3 women suffer from either anxiety and depression or both. I definitely had both. And so it wasn't until my husband dragged me along to Ginny that we actually found out the severity of my symptoms and my concerns. And then we started the process of actually getting me onto some HRT and then also supplementing with some antidepressants, which, let me tell you, once we got it right, and we didn't get it right straight away, but I was like a new person. So for me, it hit me really hard that I could go from someone who was crying every day, I'd completely lost my work ethic. I had no desire to go to work. I'd lost my confidence around doing my live TV crosses. And then all of a sudden, thanks to Dr. Ginny, I had my life back. And 9 months is a long time to be out of sorts or not yourself. So I spoke to Ginny then, and she suggested we, create a course to help other women. But I wasn't quite well enough to do it at that stage. I'm like, Ginny, I don't have the bandwidth. But as soon as I got back on track, I'm like, actually, hell yes, because I feel like I've been let down by the sisterhood because women aren't talking about this. It's taboo. I mean, I even sent a text message to my mother saying, hey, Mom, just letting you know, I'm fine. Dr. Ginny's looking after me. Darren's looking after me. I'm seeing a counselor, but I've also been put on HRT and antidepressants, but it's okay. I'm taking care of myself. And my dear mom, Lindy, just replied, chin up. Yeah, that's the way her generation dealt with perimenopause and menopause. So this is what motivated Ginny and I to then come together and go, we want to help other women. So we've created a course called Don't Sweat It. And that's about educating women about perimenopause and menopause in the workplace in particular. And we've chosen the workplace because basically we're taught about periods and pregnancy at school, and then it's kind of crickets. So I think it's important that when you are at that stage of life that you need to talk about it. So Ginny, why don't we start with the basics of what is peri, what is menopause, and what is postmenopausal?
Awesome. So for anyone who doesn't know, menopause is a single day. And if you are anal enough to record your first day of every single period, then you'll work out when it's been 12 months since you've had a period. And generally they've been getting less and less and less frequent in the years leading up to it. And that one day of menopause is the day 12 months since your last period. Everything after that, for the rest of your life till you're 150, I hope, is postmenopause. And everything that's leading up to that is either your reproductive period, Then you go into menopause transition, aka perimenopause, aka hormone hell. And that has 2 phases. And it kind of lasts anywhere between about 7 years up to 10 years now, we realize. And the first thing that happens is that the ovulation, which is in which your body selects amazingly egg of the month to go and meet the sperm of her dreams and sort of go and make a baby together. And after the egg has been released, off to go and meet her, dream date of sperm, her ovaries actually make some progesterone. That process doesn't work that well. Now, progesterone is an amazing calming hormone. So the first thing that happens is you lose your progesterone, and it's very uneven, but you will get a lack of sleep, you'll get some anxiety, you might get some mood swings, you just feel really out of sorts, and your brain often doesn't work so well. You often report a lot of brain fog. The second phase of perimenopause is when your estrogen also starts to drop. And that's when you'll start to get your hot flushes, aches and pains are really common, and vaginal symptoms are super common. And I think we should talk about that because the vaginal symptoms, I think we're okay talking about hot flushes these days. I mean, it's still a taboo, don't get us wrong, but no one talks about the vajayjay, and I'm hoping someone will have questions about my favorite part of the body, the vagina. Love her.
Yeah, which at the moment I have nicknamed the sandbox because I'm so dry. But anyway, we'll get to that.
So
I hope everyone has strapped themselves in. We will be sharing.
Yeah, sorry, we're bad.
Bring it on.
And we're also shameless. It's terrible.
Yeah,
You can't shame us. Anyway, so what we know is that these symptoms are common. So when it comes to hot flushes, the hallmark, the things that everybody knows about, the stats are about 75% of women will get hot flushes. Okay, that's fine. 1 in 3 of those women will describe the hot flushes as unbearable. So my maths, which is not great, is that 1 in 5 women will have unbearable hot flushes. And then after that, it's sort of everything from it's okay, it only happens once a day and I'm fine with it, to it's very uncomfortable, but I can live with it, all the way through to I can't handle my life right now. Then you've got insomnia. So we know that at any given time, 15% of women have insomnia, but around perimenopause, that goes up to about 65%. Then I do want to talk about the mood issues that Shelley talked about, because I think a lot of us know about postnatal depression, which is super common and it's a big risk to women, and we need to be aware of it. The problem is that it's actually not the peak time in a woman's life to get anxiety and depression. It's actually perimenopause. So midlife women, 1 in 3 will have a mental health issue. Now, this is the time in your life where you are at your highest risk of suicide. So midlife women between the ages of 45 and 55 have the highest risk of suicide of any time in their life. If you have ever had a mental health problem in your life, whether it was postnatal depression or as a teenage girl, if you ever needed to see a psychologist or got diagnosed with anything, it will come back in peri. Even if, like Shelley, you have never had anything like that before, it can still come for you. And we need to be talking about this because we also know the management of peri and menopausal depression, anxiety is very different to the management of anxiety and depression another time of life. For example, we know that hormone replacement therapy is more effective as your first cab off the rank than antidepressants, for example. The other thing to talk about is brain fog, which impacts 80% of women. 80% of women will feel like either I'm a Dumbo, or I can't remember stuff, or I'm just not as good at this as I used to be. And all of that impacts what Shelley and I are really passionate about, which is your work, because your confidence falls off a cliff. And what Shelley and I realized was that nobody is dealing with this, the impact of this in the workplace. Shelley and I are both feminists. We both really believe in gender equity. We believe, as the evidence suggests, that women should be in C-suite roles. We should be in the senior leadership teams. It's not happening. Until now, workplaces have been focusing on choosing women in their 30s and throwing money in leadership development for those women. But actually, what happens is that they hit a hormone cliff, a hormone ceiling, a hormone glass ceiling. That's what Shelley and I like to call it. So Shelley, why don't we talk about how we ended up coming up with Don't Sweat It? Because I think that's our passion, is to get women hitting their best selves so that they can actually take their careers to the next level at the time when it matters most.
So when Ginny and I decided to create a course like this, we don't do things by halves. So we did a deep dive. It has taken us nearly a year of thoroughly researching and making sure that we've got all the most up-to-date information for women in our course. So there was a really interesting study in the UK, and it actually showed that 1 in 10 women who were in that midlife area quit their job because of their peri and menopausal symptoms. Right? Quit their job. Then we had another 14%. They decided to go part-time, and then another 8%, when they were offered a promotion, said no, or even more shockingly, asked for a demotion because they didn't feel like they were coping at work. Now, this is a massive problem. We've got to look at our workforce. We've got to look at the fact that you should be at the peak of your career at this stage. And for your hormones to actually be completely pulling you back is why the European Menopause Society used that term of hormone ceiling, because it really is just another way that women are being held back. And for us, we figured that the best way to break through that hormone ceiling is to educate people, because there are too many of us out there who are embarrassed or feel stigmatized or just unaware, which was me. I was just doom walking along, and then it hit me. So really, Don't Sweat It is about making sure that you get all of the information and the support you need, and that workplaces realize what they are responsible for, because they do have a responsibility to look after the health of their staff. And we have seen with things like Are You Okay Day, that mental illness was so taboo and so not spoken about 10 years ago. But now we have Are You Okay Day. We talk about any sort of mental ill health as just the way you would discuss someone having a broken arm, which is exactly the way it should be discussed. So we've decided that this is our passion project, to break down those taboos, smash those stigmas, and get people talking, because it really is the power of education, talking to each other, and bringing the workplaces in to support us, so that you're not relying on Dr. Google or relying on a Facebook group. We want good evidence to support women.
And we know from research that the women who stay in the workplace do face, as we said, that confidence cliff. They feel like their productivity has gone down. We also know from studies that stress in the workplace contributes to how bad those menopause symptoms are. And similarly, the menopause symptoms contribute to how badly women feel about their work. But it sounds miserable. There's actually a lot of good news, because the evidence is coming out that workplace education programs that can be really cheap and very, very simple to do, just 1 hour long, can actually improve productivity, improve women's confidence, and improve women's not only staying in the workplace, but intention to continue to stay. Now, that means you're going to continue to earn your super. You're going to continue to go up the ladder. You're going to continue not to get sidestepped out of your career. You have every right to take on a senior leadership position, rather than coming back in to the workforce and now being answerable to the guy who was 3 tiers below you and who was fetching your coffees 5 years ago. So this is really a win-win for women, and it's a win-win for firms. There is nobody who loses from this, but we've got to be talking about it more, because it makes such a huge difference. The firms cannot afford to lose you guys, the amazing talent with all of the corporate knowledge, the experience of working with other people, all of the stuff that you've built up for years. It's too great for firms to lose, and it's too important for you to walk away from. So this has been a huge passion thing for Shelley and I, and we are so excited to be able to share it with people like you and with people like Drop, who've been amazingly supportive. And we are really excited to share lots and lots of stats. Whatever you want to ask, pop it in the Q&A section. So it's right at the bottom there. And we will definitely be answering all your questions. They can be as below the belt as you want.
And the other thing is, this is an opportunity for you to speak to your HR manager or your people and culture manager at work and say, I would like our office to do some education about perimenopause and menopause. So go to don'tsweatit.com.au. It's our website. It's shiny and new. We love it. So have a look at that, and you can see, like, if you have an office that has more than 50 people, it actually is going to be like less than $100. So it is not an expensive course. But some other things that we offer as well is menopause policy. So a lot of offices don't even have a menopause policy. I actually think the figure is 3% of Australian businesses have a menopause policy. So that's crazy. We also offer things like executive menopause health checks. So we have a lot of, top level executives have their health checks, but they haven't been focusing on menopause because the women haven't been putting their hand up. So Ginny offers that as well. We also just have workshops and webinars. So we can do things like this and go as intimate as you want. We will go below the belt, or we can keep it corporate and keep it above the belt. So it's totally up to you guys. But one thing in particular that I wanted to flag with you, which we're very excited about, is this is sort of away from the corporate side, but we are going to be offering Don't Sweat It retreats. So it's going to be 3 days where we come together and basically have a chat and talk to you about menopause, perimenopause, talk about the symptoms, talk about the solutions, talk about your confidence, how to improve it. But it's not going to be like a health retreat. No. There's no cutting out coffee. We are going to make sure that you have good coffee. We're going to have some great beauty treatments. And then at night, we're thinking, wine appreciation, an extra cheese course, all of that sort of thing. But the reason that we wanted to do these retreats is women have said how lonely they feel when they're going through peri and menopause. So this will be a chance for women to come together and actually be with like-minded people at the same stage, and you can develop your support system. And that's what women are great at. We support each other. Women supporting women is my life motto, and it should be for everyone, because, there are bumps in this road, but at the same time, there are also highways that you can just absolutely, burn along. And there's a great thing that people talk about once they get postmenopausal, and that's a postmenopausal zest, where you don't have to worry about getting pregnant, you don't have to worry about periods, and all of a sudden it is you time. And so you have that real boost. So there are lots of positives. So that's our big plug on Don't Sweat It. Excuse us for going on about it, but we're just so proud. And, we've poured so much of our heart and soul into this course. We really believe in it. We're actually not just, letting the course sit by itself. Ginny and I will actually be taking part in a parliamentary roundtable next year, and we're taking it to the top. So I'm happy for anyone to come on board with us. And I'm also happy for any of you to ask any questions. So should we go to questions now? Because there are lots.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. So amazing the work that you're doing. And yeah, I've been through the Don't Sweat It platform, and from a perspective of working with colleagues and wanting to support them, but also wanting to understand myself, what I can do to feel better and help manage that, is such an incredible resource, all packed into 1 hour, that course as well. So it's not lengthy, but it's just all the good stuff and super, super helpful. So as Ginny and Shelley have mentioned, we've got that link in the chat box, and we'll be sending some information out about that in the post-event email, because to answer another question, yes, this is being recorded, and that will be sent out in coming days. Yes, we do have a prize actually. So yeah, we'll be giving away one of the courses in tonight's event as well. So I've got a question that I'll be posting in the chat box in a little while, and best answer, as judged by Ginny and Shelley, will win that course, which is pretty awesome too. So stay tuned for that.
Very judgy, so look out.
Terrifying. But guys, so many good questions already coming through, and also lots of wonderful comments in the chat. So thank you so much for everybody who's engaging in there. I know that a lot of what's been said so far is resonating. I know Tamara said that for Tamara, it really resonated. They resigned after burnout, constantly felt like stress was impacting their health, and now working as a yoga guide. So wow. Lots of similar comments around burnout, and people really resonating. And I know I was really air punching with Ginny when she was saying, talking about, the incredible asset that older women are in the workplace, and how important it is to have them around, and how important it is for us to continue in those roles, and all the richness that comes with that too. I'm going to jump straight into the questions, guys. So we're going to ask the first one, which is a lot of people want to know how life is after menopause, and it is good to talk about that too.
So as you've just heard, menopause has a number of symptoms. So the hot flushes last on average just over 7 years, unless they start when you're in perimenopause, in which case they last for 11 years. So they're not going to end as you hit menopause. They're going to continue for a while. The same thing with the aches and pains, which are more common in Asian people. So we know that in Australia, 1 in 10 of us are Asian in origin, and we are Asian Australians are much more likely to experience aches and pains than any of the hot flushes. The mood swings, well, 45 to 55 is the peak time for suicide, but that is your sort of peak time for mood swings. Let's talk about below the belt, because most of this stuff, if you wait it out, will actually get better. Your problem really comes with everything below the belt. So we're talking about bladder issues, recurrent urinary tract infections, vaginal dryness, as Shelley calls it, the sandbox. Sex is very uncomfortable, low libido. What we know when it comes to vaginal dryness is that it starts for some women in perimenopause, but for some it doesn't start till they've been in menopause for a while. So by age 60, 65% of women have got some sort of vaginal dryness. By 65, that number's gone up to 80%. And it actually just gets worse and worse and worse year on year. And the problem is, if we don't fix it early, then we can always fix it. But how good we can make it just gets less and less and less good. So if you take too long to go and get the help that you need, we can't promise you that sex will be enjoyable. We can make it bearable, but we can't necessarily bring the joy back to it. And that is a shame. I do have patients who really don't give a rat's. They really don't care. They don't want their sex back. And, you know, maybe husband's got prostate cancer or he's got erectile dysfunction or whatever. If you don't want it and he doesn't want it, I've got no issue with it. But a lot of my patients miss it. They really wish they could have it back, but they don't know how to have that conversation. They haven't done it for maybe a few months. The last time they did it, it was unbearable. The time before that, which is 3 months before that, it was extremely unpleasant, etc., etc., etc. They don't want to initiate sex. And so they think their choice is between, if I turn it back on, it's going to be horrible, or just to do without it and not talk about it. That's a big dent in relationships. And whether they're same-sex relationships or male-female relationships, if you don't want that for you, we can fix that. We can fix all of this, but, you know, we can really fix that. But time is of the essence. Of course, there are a whole lot of health issues as well that start to come in post-menopause. So we know that, for example, first 5 years after menopause, you lose a lot of collagen. You also lose a lot of bone strength, and you lose a lot of muscle strength. It's much harder to actually lose weight after menopause if you don't have any muscles, which are burning fat for you. So we know that a lot of stuff happens to your body after menopause. Your heart gets, the arteries get stiffer. Your heart is not as good. So sorry for the bad news, but all of a sudden, you know, that sort of pack of Tim Tams and a 6-pack of beer that you get away with when you're sort of feeling miserable and wanted a rom-com on a Sunday, you could do that in your 30s and pay no price for it. Hello, 56, 57, you're going to pay a pretty big price for that, and your skin's going to look terrible as well. So I'm giving you all of the bad stuff, except that for every single thing, there is so much we can do. Not all of it will be easy, but everything can be fixed.
Amazing. Thank you, Ginny. We will dive into some of those options because we have had a couple of questions come through in relation to that. So I guess to kind of consolidate, could my GP prescribe anything to help with menopause? And I will also bundle in with that, can we talk about HRT and also herbal HRT? If we can do that in one question, I don't know, it's a lot, but
Ginny can do anything.
She can. What can we do? What can we do? What can doctors do to help us?
So this is not a medication that can only be prescribed by specialists. Anybody can do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will. So I need to explain something, and just bear with me. I'm not going to go on and on and on, but in 2002, a massive study came out that apparently linked HRT and cancer. It has since been debunked. It definitely did increase the risk of cancer in a group of women who started taking their HRT, average age 63. In other words, well past the years where you're having your peak menopause problems. They didn't ask women in the trial whether they're having hot flushes or mood swings or anything like that. They were doing it for heart protection. And it turns out there's this thing where if you give estrogen to women when they're young and their arteries are still supple and their heart is still supple, it's beneficial. And you cross a threshold at around the age of 60, at which point adding in estrogen for the first time when you've been more than 10 years from menopause actually can potentially do harm, particularly around breast cancer and also potentially heart disease. So that's what we need to understand. That study was completely debunked. And to say that when we give this old school form of HRT to women at age 63 and they got a slight, and when I say slight, I mean for every 10,000 women taking HRT, there were 38 breast cancers compared to 30 in the women taking a placebo. In other words, it wasn't a massive increased risk. It wasn't like you're definitely going to get breast cancer. It was an increased risk, but that group doesn't get HRT, and they certainly don't get the type of HRT that was given in that trial. So I'll just get off my high horse now and just say, don't worry about the HRT cancer thing. That's just all garbage, right?
Yeah.
Can anybody give you HRT? Yes. But, if GPs are awesome at doing blood pressure, there's an algorithm. You choose one of two medications. If that doesn't work, you add the second one, then you add the third one, then you add the fourth one. It's pretty easy. There's not that much to it. There is like 1% of people where we can't get your blood pressure under control. HRT, there's a little bit of an art to it. It's not the same for everybody. And if you're not good at it, and a lot of us have not done it for a long time, I'm very passionate. That's what I do all day, every day, but not everybody seems to do it that well. So if it's not working for you, hit up the Australasian Menopause Society, find a doctor page, and we are all super, super into menopause, and we do it all the time, and you should be right there. Now let's talk about herbal HRT, which I will call an oxymoron. In other words, no such thing. So we do have herbal treatments with a little bit of evidence. What I need to explain is doctors love really good statistics behind our scientific studies. In other words, we want tens of thousands of people. We want it to be double-blind, placebo-controlled. We want the people who are reporting their symptoms not to have any idea what they're taking, so that they don't have an idea in their head that, that makes them get a placebo effect. What we know from herbal trials is they're underfunded. Why? Because none of them are patentable. Nobody's going to make any money from it. So most of these herbal trials, they're not really good trials. So a negative doesn't mean that they don't work. It means they haven't been studied well enough. What we do know is that in these studies of herbal treatments, most of which have turned out to be pretty ineffective, with a few exceptions. Pine bark is one. Certainly hypnotherapy was another one, which I thought was really interesting, but a Cochrane review, which is like a great big huge review with lots of prestigious reviewers and scientists, actually found that it does work, particularly for hot flushes. With those, there was still a 75% placebo effect. Now, what do you do with that? Well, so Shelley and I would say, if a placebo effect is working for you, who cares?
Right.
Like, as long as you're not taking anything really dangerous. And in the M word, I did give everything a Gwyneth scale. So 3 Gwyneths is like barking mad and dangerous, with a 0 Gwyneths being like, oh, I don't care. If it works for you, take it. It's fine. Just check in sometimes with your pharmacist just to make sure that what you're taking is not going to interact with anything else you're taking or any medication that you're taking. So there'll never be the same evidence for herbal stuff as there is for HRT. Between the devil and the deep blue sea, we do have other medications, and they've mostly been trialed for hot flushes. But certain antidepressants will get, 2 for the price of 1, will help you with your mood swings, and they'll help reduce hot flushes. There are certain medications that help with like an overactive bladder that are amazing. Like, I use those for women with breast cancer with estrogen receptors on them. So we can't use HRT for women with breast cancer. In fact, any form of breast cancer, we can't. Even if they're not estrogen receptor positive, we don't use HRT for any women with breast cancer. I tend to use a lot of those bladder control things, but I often listen to my patients. What is your biggest concern? If your biggest concern is a mood issue, we'll deal with the mood. Some blood pressure medications reduce hot flushes. So if your biggest concern is that you have hot flushes, and I happen to find during the consult that you have high blood pressure, we might go down that track. So it's really working with my patients to say, what is important to you, and how can we use an alternate drug which has as a side effect reduced hot flushes? There are new drugs coming to market, and they should be here within the next couple of years, that specifically target the brain and hot flushes. They seem to be really well tolerated. They are extremely, extremely effective. And so watch this space within a couple of years. If it's just hot flushes that are worrying you, then we can sort that out. The problem is that very few of my patients just have a simple hot flush and that's all they have. That's just so rare. Women with hot flushes don't sleep very well. They have night sweats. They're not sleeping very well. They get anxiety. They have insomnia. There is so much that is interrelated, and there's very few things that will fix everything outside of HRT. So I am a bit of a fan because I see it working so well, but I will always work with my patients to make sure that they get the treatment that they need and that they want. And your preference will always be number one. If you don't want HRT, let's take it off the table. We're not going there.
Can I also jump in here too and recommend to you all that you, as an advocate for your own health, keep some notes. So I keep notes in my phone now of when my period is. I keep notes if I have really low mood days. I keep notes about all of that. Just jot it into your phone, because I found I would, particularly when I was feeling depressed, I kind of went on and on, my periods all over the shop. Like I didn't have facts to share with the GP. So it's really good to go armed with some evidence, track your cycle. If you've got a smartwatch, get it, make sure it's all involved there. And it really does help to make sure that I also took my partner, Darren, with me, because I cried the whole way through my first appointment with Ginny. So, which was a bit ridiculous, but that was me. And he was there, and we'd written down some questions beforehand so that we really got the answers we wanted. So it's also up to you to make sure that you're making it easier for the doctors to help you the best the way that they can.
Yeah, that is such a great tip. And I'm sure it is very helpful to the doctors, right, Ginny, to have that overall view, because it can be sounds like a little bit of a symptomatic roller coaster in terms of what 100%. We're experiencing and when.
And look, if your doctor says, put that list away, I've only got time to do the first one thing on your list, then that might be the doctor for you. So you will go and find another doctor. Easier said than done, particularly if you are in rural and regional Australia. You don't always have that option to multiple doctors, and it is hard to find a new GP at the moment. But hopefully,
there's also telehealth.
Yeah, there's telehealth, and there are menopause specific clinics that are opening up. I am going to drop a mention of WellFem. So it's WELLFEMME. That is a group of like-minded doctors who are all very actively involved in the Australasian Menopause Society. The doctor who started it, Kelly Teagle, is absolutely amazing. And that's her business. She does telehealth around menopause, and you'd be in really good hands. Right now, I think there's a massive wait to get in to see her, but she has other doctors there as well at WellFem.
Amazing. That's such an important resource. Thank you. We'll make sure that gets shared with the group. Okay, thank you guys for sending your questions through. We have so many. I'm going to jump to one in regards to the workplace situation. Which is, where is it? Do you have any recommendations for how I can manage these conversations as a contractor? I don't have access to many of the resources that permanent employees have.
I'll jump in onto this one. Thanks for that question, Helen. That's me. I'm a contractor as well. So I run my own business, and I work for Channel 9, and I work for other companies. So I'm the same. I found it really difficult at first because I was quite ashamed that I didn't feel like my work ethic was there, and I didn't feel like I had as much output. Here's the interesting thing that we found with the research. Women judge themselves so harshly that often they feel like they're not performing, and in fact, no one else is even noticing. It's their mind that is actually their biggest detractor. So what I have done, because I write for 9 Honey every week, I do a day a week for them. It used to be I would do a set day. And so what I've done now is I've had a chat to my boss, and I said, sometimes with my symptoms, I'm just not feeling great on a Monday. So can I just say that I will get X number of stories to you this week? And so the flexibility of my hours really helped me, because I could just go, you know what, today I just need to have an easy morning, and then I'll tackle it in the afternoon. And I get a lot of work done if I'm kind to myself. So I have never spoken to an HR person about this. I've never had that opportunity. But on the same level, I have friends who work at large corporations, and their HR and people and culture resources are incredible. So, I think that is the disadvantage with being a contractor, but there are advantages. Like, you don't have to put up with a lot of the shit that goes on in workplaces. So I would just say it's a case of having an open conversation with your direct line manager and just seeing if they are open to flexible working hours, or perhaps if you could say, I'm not great in the mornings, but I'm great in the afternoons, or work it out that way.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Shelley. And obviously with the, we've been referencing the Don't Sweat It course and platform for workplaces. There's also individual seats or courses that you can just purchase one off as well for yourself. Yep. And we are giving one of those away as well, Helen. So you might want to pop an answer in for that question that's in the chat box as well. And hopefully win that. Tayaba said that the organisation that they work with has a menopause policy in place, which is quite a recent development. And is Tabaya, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Tayaba, sorry, is part of the Menopause for Thought group at their office, but would be very keen to know what other organisations are doing and if we can incorporate these. And I think,
well done. That's amazing.
Great,
so yeah, the research that we've done is 3% of Australian businesses have a menopause policy. So you guys are leading the way. Congratulations. And if you need any help, we are around.
Yeah, amazing.
And don't forget that. LinkedIn just came out yesterday or the day before and said that menopause is one of their top trends for workplaces in 2023. As Shelley mentioned earlier, we are involved in a parliamentary roundtable where menopause in the workplace will be discussed at federal level. It's already being discussed at a number of states at state level, but this is coming, and your workplaces are going to have to get on board. And what we need is for workplaces to be front-footed about this, and you guys can lead the charge by saying to your workplaces, we need this. But if they don't hear from you, they don't think they need it. I mean, it's just amazing to us how many people that we've spoken to who have said, oh, well, menopause doesn't affect our workplace at all. And yet 50% of their workforce is female. And of that, 50% or more are in their 40s and 50s. Well, yes, you do need it. And there is no way that none of those women have symptoms. And there's no way that their symptoms are not affecting their work. You just don't know about it. So you guys, if you don't mind sharing the information that you have and saying that there are simple solutions that are incredibly cost effective, but bringing it to the attention of the people who can make a difference for you, for your colleagues, and for the women who come after you. Because I think that what Shelley was saying is we have a sisterhood here, and we don't want the girls who are currently in their 30s and early 40s to go through what we went through, which is just feeling alone and shamed and stigmatized and unsupported, and like there are no answers for us.
And can I just do a quick hands up for the blokes? Because we really were worried that our course may not connect with, let's call them the pale, male and stale in corporations out there. And in fact, we have had such a positive response. And most of the men who've done the course have sent us messages like, thank you. I had no idea about this. I didn't know how to help and support my staff through it, but also it's helped my wife or it's helped my sister. And hearing that sort of thing makes us realize by women keeping silent, it's actually disadvantaging men as well, because they can't step up and do what we want them to do if we don't tell them what we need. So it's actually been a pleasant eye-opener.
Yeah, so true. And that's wonderful to hear. And we've had a couple of questions and a message in the chat in regards to a menopause workplace policy. Christine was asking how to access one. Kat has said what sort of things would be in it. Can we talk a little bit about what could be in it and how to access?
So we have to work with your organisation to make sure that we're aligned. A lot of workplaces already have, let's say, a sick leave policy or a disability policy or a diversity, equity, inclusion policy. So we need to work out how we would fit in with you. So we have a team of workplace lawyers who do that. But the kinds of things that we would talk about are flexible working places, flexible working hours, access to cold water, access to very simple solutions. making sure that no woman is stigmatized, that we offer workplace education to everybody, not just saying, hey, if you've got perimenopause over there in the corner and you can do this course. We just don't feel that there's no evidence that that will be helpful. We know that there is evidence that if you put everybody through a workplace policy and a workplace course, that everybody benefits. And in fact, any kind of diversity, equity, inclusion kind of policy and course will actually make everybody feel more included.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. Here's what we don't have. Menopause leave. Shell?
Look,
Let's talk about that.
Things. Yeah, we consider ourselves a little bit controversial, but we honestly, with the research that we've done, we don't think menopause leave is going to help, because having an extra 6 days off a year is not that helpful when your symptoms are 365 days a year and last up to 10 years. So we have a true concern that we're going to start limiting workplaces that want to employ women who are in that midlife stage of life. So we think that menopause leave is a bit of a cop-out. It's actually quite expensive for companies, and the solutions that we are offering are very inexpensive, but it's all about making people feel more included and supported. So simple things like Ginny mentioned, having desk fans, making sure that you've got the policy in place, making sure that you have like someone to talk to. So it's stuff like that is actually takes more work for the organization, but we can help them through that. Menopause leave is not the answer. And I am all for period leave, because I think that is pretty much timed. It's 12 days off a year, and that is very much for women who have terrible periods, which was me when I was younger. So menopause leave is not something that we'll be putting any weight behind. And I think once you get into that perimenopausal stage, you'll understand that a day off is actually not going to help. But what you might need is those flexible work hours, or to not have to work in that corner office that has the sun streaming in the whole time with no aircon. There are other things that will help you and actually help you to thrive.
And we're not into tick box exercises that allow a workplace just to go there. We've ticked that box and we don't need to think about it anymore. The implication is that if you get 6 or 12, which is in the union movement's proposal at the moment, if you get 12 days off a year, now go off and don't talk about menopause anymore. It's not enough. We would rather say spend 1 day's worth of a woman's leave, and instead of spending 12 days worth of her leave, actually invest in her well-being, actually be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. It is so much cheaper, it is so much easier, but it helps us stay connected. And in fact, Monash University Business School has done a lot of research into this space. And in fact, what they found is that menopause leave does not help women stay in the workplace. In fact, what does help women stay in the workplace is simple courses like Don't Sweat It, which get everybody on the same page and just normalize and destigmatize an issue like this, plus adding very positive, easy to implement solutions.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you explained that, because, at first glance, I think, yeah, why not? It sounds great to have these days off, but you absolutely nail it there. And it's a very, very good point. I want to jump back to a couple of symptom questions for you, Ginny, if that's okay. And I'll probably quick fire a couple of these at you, because we'll be wrapping up shortly and we have our competition winner. Carolyn asked what the very first symptoms of peri would be. I'm now 46 now, and my period cycle goes from anything from 17 to 29 days, and also some bloating. Are these peri symptoms?
So yes to the first one, the irregular cycle, the unpredictable cycle. It does tend to get shorter before it gets longer. I'm going to out myself. I didn't get the mood stuff. I didn't get the hot sweats, but I definitely got the floods and needed some surgery to actually fix something called a polyp, which was dreadful. But definitely I started getting periods every 2-3 weeks. Definitely not cool with that, and that really impedes your workplace as well. In terms of the bloating, so studies have shown that both irritable bowel syndrome and constipation peak around perimenopause, and they're the biggest causes of bloating. But again, we've got really simple solutions about this. I've written a whole chapter on bloating in the M Word, so maybe go and check that out. in terms of what is the first symptom, everybody's different.
Yeah.
I might see 5 or 6 new peri and menopausal women a day, and I can tell you no two are the same. So what I need to do is spend the time to listen, hear her, and then use some prompting questions. Has this happened? A lot of my patients have aches and pains and they didn't even connect it to their perimenopause. They came in talking about their hot flushes. They haven't, thought about the mood stuff. Mood stuff's getting a bit of traction in social media, so now they're coming in with the mood stuff, but they hadn't really connected their recurrent urine infection. So it can be anything, and let's not be too prescriptive about this. Let's just listen to women and hear what they're saying.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Jenny. Helen asked, how do you know if you've reached menopause if you've had a hysterectomy? So in this instance, had a hysterectomy, still have one ovary.
Such a great question. And
I get asked this all the time.
Yeah, this is the only circumstance under which we would do a blood test. So we don't do blood tests normally. A lot of my patients are asking me for blood tests. They are really unhelpful, despite the fact that lots of gynecologists and endocrinologists are ordering them. Both the Australasian and the International Menopause Societies recommend them against them. And the reason is menopause is 12 months since your last period. So if you haven't had a period for 12 months with a uterus, then you know you've had it. And if you're normally in peri, then it's unhelpful, because what is your blood test result one day will be different tomorrow, be different next week. So it's just useless. So you can actually have a blood test that tells you that you're in menopause and still be getting regular periods. I mean, Shelley and I hear this sort of thing all the time. So it's completely useless. Don't bother with hormone tests, unless you're one of those people who, like Shelley, has a Mirena, like before her periods went crazy. I've had a Mirena continuously since I was 28 and had my last child. I've still got one now. We don't necessarily, unless our periods go crazy, we don't know that we're having menopause. And the same thing with women who've had a hysterectomy. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter, because we would treat you for your symptoms exactly the same. It doesn't really matter whether you've hit that magic number. We go with what your symptoms are. But if you want to know, we can certainly do a blood test for you.
Yeah, okay, amazing. Thank you. I'm noticing in the comments we've had throughout the event, a lot of people talking about their experience of feeling fairly isolated. There can be instances of being the only person in their friend group currently going through menopause. Or just, through being, feeling like it's taboo, not being able to connect. And I know that the retreats, the idea of the retreat seems to be resonating very much. Maria said that she loved the idea of the retreat and needs it now in caps, because none of her friends are going through menopause. So it's difficult to talk about it when they can't quite understand. And I think that community and connection is obviously really resonates as such an important part of the offering. So when are these retreats happening, or what should we, how should we be looking out for information? I also want to go. So
yeah,
personal, yeah, asking for my own self too.
We have created it. We just have to implement it. So we're probably talking about mid next year, and that's just the reality of getting it all together and finding a resort or somewhere that can take us, all of that sort of thing. But what you can do is, if you go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, we'll definitely be pushing out information about the retreats there. I really connect with that comment because I felt so alone. Most of my friends are 10 years younger than me, and I don't know why that is, but
except for me.
Except
I'm like the old bag. I'm like 5 years older, but yeah.
But also, Ginny didn't have the symptoms that I was having. So it wasn't the mental health. Like, I just didn't. So my friends that are younger are all a little bit terrified now, going, oh my God, we're seeing what you've gone through. What's going to happen? But my mother didn't talk to me about it. My colleagues didn't talk to me about it. So it's one of those things that I will really going to be soaking up the retreat as well, because I think there's just something about sharing your experiences and realizing that you're not alone, you're not going crazy, and that you can feel, some people feel some grief because they've lost their fertile years. That didn't apply to me, but it applied to one of my friends. There are some people who, like I'm going through at the moment, where I feel angry at my body because I can't trust it. I can't trust that when I get up on stage to perform, when I'm emceeing events, that I won't just drip with sweat. So there's a lot to unpack. And I think that sort of thing you can't do in a webinar. You need to be in a comfortable, safe space at a retreat. So yes, we're going to get it up and running. And from the sound of it, already we've had so many people say that they'd like to do it. So we might be doing multiple retreats.
Amazing. Well, we'll definitely be sharing that with the audience when they're available. And if you're not already following Ginny and Shelley on Instagram as well, they've got their personal Instagram handles, and also Don't Sweat It. Definitely do that, because obviously we've just like touched the tip of the iceberg, really, in terms of this conversation.
Like
could go
information bomb on everyone.
It is. Well, Carolyn has just said, thank you. I found this so helpful, and we are pretty much wrapping up. And guys, what I'm thinking is I've just seen so many beautiful and really thoughtful answers for this competition. And rather than putting you on the spot and having us quickly choose one, I think the best thing to do to give everyone, the best chance is to actually have a look at these answers together. You guys choose a winner, and then we'll communicate that on email in the next day. I think that's a much better way. So final chance, if you do want to enter to win the Don't Sweat It online course valued at $174, just pop your answer to the question, which is, what have you learned about peri or menopause tonight, and why is that valuable to you? And you could win. Look, we're pretty much at time. There's one final question that I wanted to ask, and you both might have a different answer for this one, I'm hoping. And that is, what happens after menopause, and what is post-menopause life like?
So the great thing is there's an incredible study from the US that describes postmenopausal women as having a menopausal zest. And I love that term. I think that's amazing, because you no longer have to worry about getting pregnant. You no longer have to worry about having a period or flooding in public. But you also are at that stage of life where you can put yourself first. So for a lot of women, when they get to that midlife stage, their kids are already through school, their parents are elderly and they're helping them, but it's actually time for women to go, well, what do I want? What do I want to do? There's a huge amount of research showing that a lot of women start a side hustle, because they're like, I've done that job for a long time, but I've lost my passion, but boy, am I passionate about this. And so there will be a bit of a move around. There's also a lot more travel. So I think that we need to remember, this is a transition, not a disease. This too shall pass. And honestly, I am so looking forward to being post-menopausal that I wish I could speed it up, because I think that is going to be when I absolutely thrive. So maybe I'm turning 50 next year, so maybe it'll be Shelley 5.0 instead of 2.0. But I'm actually really looking forward to it.
I love that. And I've got to say, you're pretty zingy now. So
I know, imagine I get more
zing, I have to like dim my screen. You'll be zinging all over the place. But that's really awesome. Thank you, Shelley. And Ginny, anything to add?
So like Shelley, I'm still in peri. I haven't crossed over into the other side, so I don't have my own personal experience to add. But I do have research that says that if you get past the hump that is that sort of midlife, 45 to 55, it's actually a time when you're the happiest in your life. A lot of us have, particularly if we can keep you in your workforce and we can keep you with a decent sort of amount of superannuation, it's a time where you've got a bit of financial freedom. There's a lot of stress before that. There's a lot of like building and, saving up for different things and looking after your children. All of a sudden that money's yours, and it's what you do with it that really counts. There's a lot of women who feel like, really, you can give up the bullshit. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to be anything that you don't want to be. You don't have to have friends that you don't want to see anymore. You can really give up and be really comfortable. Yeah, you're comfortable in your own skin. You've moved past all the angst, which you think is going to disappear in your teenage years. So it's like that confidence cliff around peri is just terrible. And it just makes you like feel like, a lot of us get social anxiety around this time. That will all be behind you. So for my patients, they often, as Shelley said, come into their own. They feel amazing. I'm like Shelley. I'm really looking forward to this next stage of my life. I'm not terrified of it at all. And I feel particularly confident because I have the evidence about what is going to make my transition and my menopause experience really good. And I'm not going to just put my health to the side. I'm going to invest in my balance, in my strength, in my fitness, in my good diet, because I want to live life to the fullest and take squeeze every drop out of it.
Yeah, I love that. What a wonderful note to finish on. And we're so grateful to have you both here tonight sharing your wisdom. I know so many people in the comments have just said it's been so eye-opening and so helpful. Wonderful to hear some positivity around this too. And thank you for all the content and the books and the resources that you're creating that's going to help navigate and support women through this very important time in their life that we all experience. So thank you so much again to Ginny and Shelley for sharing with us this evening, and also to our attendees for all of your time and questions. It's been wonderful to have you engaging in the chat, and we really appreciate your time. There will be a replay coming out in the coming days and more information on the Don't Sweat It platform. Plus, we will be in touch with our competition winner and we'll announce that on socials tomorrow, I think. If you'd like to learn more about what we do at Drop, please make sure you visit our website and join the waitlist for our next wellbeing release. But for now, thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful evening and look forward to seeing you again really soon.
Thank you, everyone. Consider
Thanks so much, guys.
Your Perry godmothers.
I love that. Too good. Thanks so much, guys. Good night.
Okay.